Welcome back, ScreenRanters. Here's some behind-the-scenes info for you. Actors have to do auditions in order to get parts in productions. Only in rare exceptions does an actor not have to take part in this process. While most auditions are pretty standard, every so often the actor will find themselves in the strangest and most confusing audition process ever, which is exactly what we're looking at today. All those times, the actors were asked to do more than simply recite a scene, as well as the unusual ways the performers managed to land a gig. So grab your mountain of headshots and let's get started. The second Borat film eases the burden that is 2020 just a smidge. With all the publicity that Borat's subsequent movie film has received, it thrust Tutar Sagdiyev actor Maria Bakalova into the spotlight. Previously, she had appeared in a number of small roles. So when she heard about an open casting call for a leading role in a Hollywood film, she was apprehensive. The Bulgarian actor didn't think performers from her country would be in such a position. After sending out tapes, she got an appointment to do a screen test in London. However, the project was a closely guarded secret. As such, Bakalova was really nervous when she arrived. In fact, she had the feeling the audition was a scam. Instead, she could be walking into a human trafficking situation. But all that melted away once Borat himself, Sacha Baron Cohen, walked in. Since a lot of the film is improvised, one of the tests involved the two meeting real-life people whilst in character. Bakalova nailed it. Over 600 women auditioned for the role of Tutar, yet Bakalova was victorious. There are even some calls for her to be nominated for an Oscar. Let's look at a chap that auditioned for a franchise that uses the word fantastic in the title, Mads Mikkelsen. Nope, it has nothing to do with the news involving Johnny Depp. Instead, we're going to look at the audition the former Hannibal Lecter did for 2015's Fantastic Four, or Fanforstic if you're nasty. According to many reports, Mikkelsen was one of the leading contenders to take on the role of Dr. Doom, which means we would have had Mikkelsen involved in 2 Marvel properties as a villain in a year, since he was in Doctor Strange, of course. Anyway, Mikkelsen apparently walked out of the audition, at least according to rumor. Well, we found out the truth when he was interviewed. He stated, "I didn't walk out. When I left it, I was just like, this is crazy. I don't have long arms. What am I doing here? The audition was only about long arms, no lines." I felt a little funny. So, he had to pretend he had long arms? Well, that sounds more like a certain Reed Richards than Victor Von Doom. With scenes like this being possible, it's understandable Mikkelsen was feeling a tad funny with it. A whole entry about Hugh Laurie. A little bit of a dream coming to life. Okay, I'll compose myself. So, as the casting call for House was announced, Laurie was in Namibia. At the time, he was shooting 2004's Flight of the Phoenix. He scrambled back to his hotel and went into the bathroom with a camera. The only thing with enough light, get your minds out of the gutter. He looked around and grabbed an umbrella to pretend it was a walking stick, the key arsenal of Dr. Gregory House. Due to the shooting in the desert and the nature of the Flight of the Phoenix, Laurie was unshaven and not quite as kempt. He apologized for it as he began his audition. Bryan Singer, who was an executive producer for House, picked out Laurie's portrayal. He stated that this American actor was able to completely grasp the character. Only problem is, Laurie isn't American. He's British. Singer had no idea. The rest of the producers jumped on board after seeing the tape. One of Laurie's audition tapes is actually online for the world to see. Even then, you can already imagine him collecting his 2 Golden Globes for the role. No, I'm not obsessed with Hugh Laurie. Hey, did you know he's also a musician as well? As Martin Scorsese's Wolf of Wall Street was being put together, Margot Robbie wasn't exactly the well-known star she is today. At least outside of her native Australia, anyway. So, as part of the audition process for the role of Naomi LaPaglia, Robbie had a meeting with Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. Any actor would be nervous, let alone someone trying to break into the industry. The three were going to do a scene together to see how the 2 actors gel. In her head, Robbie began telling herself to leave a big impression, so she went all in. DiCaprio and Robbie began screaming at each other. At the end of the argument, DiCaprio, still in character, demands that Robbie kiss him. So she walks up close to his face. She ponders what she should do. Should she kiss him? Now instead, something clicks in her brain. Robbie channels her inner Harley Quinn and slaps the Oscar-winning actor hard across the face while yelling expletives. That part wasn't in the audition script. The room fell into stunned silence. Robbie thought DiCaprio was going to sue her for assault. Instead, he asked her to slap him again, perfectly encapsulating the toxic relationship between the two characters. In the lead-up to 1977, Harrison Ford was a struggling actor. He'd appeared in a number of films, including George Lucas's American Graffiti in 1973, but nothing regular or substantial. So, he began making cash as a carpenter. One day, Ford was at Francis Ford Coppola's office to install a door. In the building, Lucas was struggling for a stand-in to read the lines during the audition process for Star Wars Episode IV: A New Hope. As he was walking through the corridor, he spotted Ford with his tool belt. An idea burst into his head. However, Lucas was adamant it was just for line reading with the Princess Leia performers. Lucas didn't want to have a reputation as a director who works with the same actors in his films. Oh boy, how times change. As they plowed through the auditions, Lucas's previous resolve began to wane. Ford, ever the professional, had thrown everything into his task. Now, Lucas really wanted to see Ford as Han Solo. In the end, he offered the part to his friend. And the rest, they say, is history.
I love you.
I know.
Kids are creepy at the best of times. But when you're shooting a horror film, any old creepy kid won't cut it. You need the type of child that makes you nervous just to be around. Well, it's exactly what Richard Donner was looking for when casting 1976's The Omen. He needed a demon child to play a literal demon in the shape of Damien in the film. In the audition with Harvey Stevens, Donner wanted to see how he would be in the scene where Damien fights his mother. So, ignoring child safety laws, Donner challenged Stevens to a fight. Without a moment to pause and think about the request, Stevens charged at Donner. The young actor clawed at Donner's face, but he wasn't done. Stevens then punted Donner right in his, family jewels. After the audition, we assume whilst bent over in agony and talking with a high-pitched voice, Donner told the producers to cast Stevens and have his hair dyed black. In most cases, attacking an employer and booting them in an intimate area is usually a bad way to get a job. However, Hollywood is a weird, strange place. For 2018's The Favorite, Emma Stone was the only American performer to be cast. And after the bizarre audition process she had to go through, it is definitely deserved. Stone spoke in interviews about meeting Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos. He asked her to pant like a dog as she spoke her lines. Perhaps this is an incredible acting method that would make the great Konstantin Stanislavski nod his head in approval. Stone wasn't the only one to experience similar actions with Lanthimos. Nicholas Hoult had to hum a tune whilst the other actors spoke their lines in the audition. Lanthimos followed up by asking Hoult to imagine that there are force fields around the room that he had to sculpt objects from. This behavior didn't end at the audition after they were cast. Hoult recalled the cast had similar games as a warm-up before filming. None of the cast knew why they were doing this. When Lanthimos was asked about why he made his actors do this, everyone was expecting something deep. Instead, Lanthimos shrugged and stated he had no idea. In 2017, the live-action film of The Jungle Book, Mowgli: Legend of the Jungle, was being cast. Since it was a big-budget film adaptation of a beloved story, there was bound to be some big-name actors popping up, including a few Marvel performers: Benedict Cumberbatch, Cate Blanchett, Christian Bale, who's meant to soon be in the MCU, and Andy Serkis, who was also directing. Feeling like there wasn't enough Marvel, Tom Holland was also thrown in for an audition. The king of making CGI characters come to life, Serkis was going to be there for the trial of actors. To begin with, all went well for Holland during the first reading of the script. As seen during an interview with Graham Norton, Holland stated that Serkis gave him the weirdest request he'd ever had in an audition. He wanted the Spider-Man actor to do the same scene, but as a wolf. With confused bemusement, Holland did the only thing that came to mind. Yeah, he did the whole scene again with his hands like that. No other changes, except the hand-ear things. He, didn't get the part. The future two-time Golden Globe nominee and the woman that finally brought Emma Frost onto the big screen, January Jones, was just finding her acting feet in the late 90s. So when she heard about an audition to be in Coyote Ugly, she accepted the offer. When she turned up, producer Jerry Bruckheimer was holding the auditions. Since it's a film that involves a bit of risque dancing, Jones was asked by Bruckheimer to showcase her moves after reading the dialogue. But not just any dancing. pole dancing. However, there was no pole in the room. The song Kiss by Prince was put on, and Jones was incredibly embarrassed by the request. She did her best with these bizarre circumstances, but not in Bruckheimer's eyes. According to Jones, he stated, "Honey, you did a great reading, but you've got no rhythm." That effectively ended her hopes of being cast. Jones called her agent when she left the building and stated she didn't want to do this anymore. Eventually, she went back to acting. By 2007, Jones began starring in Mad Men.
Bye, bye, bye.
Imagine for a moment that you're a part of the casting team for Gotham. You've already seen 34 people for the role of Fish Mooney that morning. You're tired. It's coming up to lunch, so you're pondering what you should have. But you see that the next person that's auditioning is Jada Pinkett Smith, who had been in the Matrix franchise, Hawthorne, and one of the best Adam Sandler films, Reign Over Me. You prepare yourself to not ask any questions about her husband, Will Smith. After all, that would be tacky. Then there's a knock at the door. In comes Jada. Only, it's not what you're expecting. She struts in whilst wearing a long evening gown and a short black wig. Oh yeah, she's also dragging a topless man on a lead. The young chap also has the word liar scribbled on his forehead with lipstick. Smith said that she didn't want to talk to the producers about who Mooney is, just like every other actor. Instead, she wanted to show them her vision. In her own words, she went method, and it definitely paid off.
That's plenty.
Done. Nice talk.
And that's a wrap. Have you ever had a weird audition? Let us know your tale in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe. All of those actions really help us out. And finally, thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.